Here to introduce our guest of honor is Mr. Sean Kenny, Vice President of the Global Healthcare Industry Segment for EDS, an HP company. Let me please welcome Sean to the stage, to the podium.
Thank you, Karen. It's a pleasure to partner with the Churchill Club to host this evening's town hall. And for our guests here that include members of AEA, ITAA, the Churchill Club, and TechNet, let me also welcome all of you. Many of you would know that Hewlett-Packard was formed about 70 years ago, not very far from where we are today, and has become the world's largest comprehensive technology firm in terms of both products and services. We have been involved as a responsible corporate citizen, encouraging public debate and dialogue on key issues of the day. And it is in that spirit that we are delighted to present Governor Deval Patrick to you this evening. Governor Patrick is a renowned and known leader in civil rights and a trailblazer in many ways. His election to 2006 as governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts marks just the latest in a long and distinguished career. A graduate of Harvard Law, Governor Patrick served as a law clerk to a federal appellate judge and then worked for the NCAA Legal Defense and Education Fund. He joined the Boston firm of Hill & Barlow and became a partner in just 4 years in 1990. It took me 10 years to become a partner. He was appointed by President Clinton to become Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, the nation's largest, most senior civil rights post in 1994. After completing his service in the Clinton administration, Governor Patrick was appointed the first chairperson of Texaco's Equality and Fairness Task Force and subsequently became Vice President and General Counsel of Texaco. He then became Executive Vice President and General Counsel of the Coca-Cola Company in 2000 and became Corporate Secretary of Coca-Cola in 2002. Governor Patrick is a national advocate for policies and investments that support innovation and entrepreneurship. In his remarks tonight, we'll learn more about his vision for an innovation economy and its role in creating the next wave of jobs. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Governor Deval Patrick.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kenny, and I appreciate very much to all of you the very warm welcome. A special thanks to Karen Tucker and to all of the Churchill Club for having me this evening, and to Sean, for the whom I just called Kenny, for the generous introduction. I'm a great admirer of this company, of Hewlett-Packard, and of the many ways that you partner with us in Massachusetts. So I'm particularly excited to have a chance to visit the mothership here tonight. Those of you who know me, and I see a lot of familiar faces around the room, know that I much prefer conversation to just giving a speech. So as you heard, rather than give a speech, I thought I would just make a few remarks just to sort of set the table and then open it up to your comments and questions and coaching and any advice you have for me on governing or anything else for that matter. We gather, of course, in the midst of one of the worst economic recessions in 3 or 4 generations. Banks have money but won't lend it. Unemployment is rising as businesses and nonprofits alike are laying off staff because they can't see a clear path to tomorrow. Hardworking people have seen their savings and their home equity snatched away by turmoil in the markets. The poor have been in terrible shape for a long time. But right now, the middle class are 1 month away from being poor and deeply anxious about it. We're feeling that downturn in state governments, too. Though our challenges in Massachusetts will seem trivial compared to California's. That's not a dig at California. It's just a relative thing. Revenues in Massachusetts are falling and wreaking havoc with the state budget. In the past few months, we have identified and closed a $2.5 billion budget gap. Doing that has required tough choices among miserable options. We took an already lean budget and cut spending, laid off staff, and limited programs, in some cases at the very time that the need and the demand and the claim on those programs has been rising. Now, some folks think that the thing to do at a time like this is to hunker down and wait it out. I don't. I think it's important that we look ahead and that we keep going. I grew up on welfare on the south side of Chicago, but my grandmother never permitted us to describe ourselves as poor. She would always say, "We're broke." So we're broke. Said that we should describe ourselves as broke because broke is temporary. Poor is a state of mind and permanent. Even while we make these tough choices in our homes and in our businesses and governments, it's vital to remember that all economies are cyclical, and we will cycle out of this downturn. The question, it seems to me, is what can we do today to make ourselves as ready as possible to take advantage of the upswing when it comes? I think there is opportunity in this crisis, as there are in most crises. In Massachusetts, we are looking to seize these opportunities. We start with exceptionally good economic bones. We have a high concentration of brain power and of world-class research universities like MIT, Harvard, UMass, whose president is here representing UMass in our community of research institutions, and dozens of others, every single one of which is incubating new ideas today. We have an extraordinary and sophisticated supply of venture capital. We have a highly educated workforce, and we have a tradition of innovation that goes back centuries, really all the way back to whaling. I won't get into those details, but I can. And that is true today in a host of industries and areas, as well as and including the information and communications technology space. So innovation is, through the centuries, what we in Massachusetts are about. We believe innovation will be our economic edge in the future, just as it has been in the past. That's why we in government are actively partnering with the private sector and the universities to strengthen our innovation industries. So, for example, we passed a life sciences initiative last year, a $1 billion initiative over 10 years to consolidate and extend our lead in biotech, biomedical, and medical devices. Our concentration of teaching hospitals, research laboratories, entrepreneurs, and VCs form a supercluster in this field, and we want to encourage its growth for the future of both our economy and of healing itself. Dr. Susan Wyndham-Bannister, the head of our Life Sciences Center, is getting that initiative up and running, and she is overseen very ably and very capably by the Housing and Economic Development Secretary, Greg Bielecki, who is also here with us tonight. We are cultivating a burgeoning clean tech industry. Research and product development is exploding in cellulosic biofuels, wind and wave technology, solar applications, coal gasification, and efficiency and conservation strategies through which we believe we will be able to supply all of our own growth needs. A comprehensive legislative package passed into law last year addresses some of the regulatory barriers for entry into this market, provides a number of incentives and subsidies to help stimulate demand, and creates new siting opportunities offshore in state waters. Pat Cloney, the new head of our Clean Energy Center, is here tonight. I think I saw Pat back here, and is bringing a similar focus and support to that sector of our innovation economy. And we look forward to all that you're going to do with us and for us in Massachusetts as well, Pat. The financial services industry, historically one of our largest and deepest, is now developing retirement products for aging populations in China and elsewhere in the world. And robotics and nanotechnology for both consumer products and military industrial applications has come to define manufacturing in our state. This all builds on strengths we have in precision manufacturing, particularly in the western and northernmost parts of our state. And what's more, we have a 15-year record of constant and intentional improvement in public education, ranking first in the nation on NAEPS, the nation's report card, and near the top in the world on TIMSS, the international benchmark for math and science proficiency. Now, what should any of this matter to you, you lions of the tech sector? For one thing, the presence of talent today and the cultivation of talent for tomorrow are essential to the IT industry. We have the brainpower you need need, and we are growing a steady supply for the future. For another, every one of the industries we are focused on, every one that defines our innovation economy in Massachusetts, depends on what you do, on what you create, on what you make. None of it is possible without a robust IT industry. In other words, you enable our innovation. Information and communications technology is, as a result, central to the Massachusetts economy. There are over 1,300 information technology companies, over 300 semiconductor and electronic component companies, and nearly 200 communication equipment companies in operation and, on the whole, making money in Massachusetts today. Digital media companies are growing exponentially thanks to the MIT Media Lab and others, and we have become a hub for video gaming developers, nearly 80 of them so far. Film production has rediscovered Massachusetts, too, in part because of this digital capacity, and in part because we passed one of the best film tax credits in the country 2 years ago. And on the state level, we are investing in extending broadband to the remotest corners of the state within the next 3 to 4 years. All in all, this broad-based, high-tech sector of ours employs hundreds of thousands of people, generates billions of dollars of economic opportunity and activity, and enables some of the most exciting innovations on the planet. This is not your father's Route 128. We honor that heritage, but we are building rapidly on it. Today's Massachusetts tech world is a razor-sharp, forward-leaning industry that is important to me, to the state, and to the world. A lot of you here are partnering with us already. I've seen the attendance list. We welcome others. We have lots of business cards to pass around, so don't leave after we're done. I am also quite excited about the new administration in Washington in the context of our innovation economy. President Obama understands the value of technology and the solutions it promises to a whole host of challenges we face around alternative and renewable energy, the revival of American manufacturing, the expansion of and respect for science, and on and on. The stimulus bill will provide resources to expand broadband and to develop a comprehensive health IT network, just as we are trying to do on the state level at home. And his commitment to strengthening public education bodes well for the future of the industry, too. I will be interested to hear during the discussion we have in a minute whether you see additional opportunities ahead in partnering with the new administration. But it is, above all, about looking ahead. And I want to close with a word on why I think it's so important to be looking ahead, even in uncertain times like these, maybe especially in uncertain times like these. It's because I think that what's at stake is something central to who we are. I mentioned earlier that I grew up poor, I should say broke, on the south side of Chicago. I used to share a room and a set of bunk beds with my mother and my sister, so you go from the top bunk to the bottom bunk to the floor every third night on the floor. I went to broken and overcrowded and sometimes violent public schools. I can't remember a time when I didn't love to read, but I don't remember actually owning a book until 1970, when I was 14 years old, and I got a break through a program called A Better Chance to go to Milton Academy, which for me was like landing on a different planet. When our youngest daughter, Catherine, graduated from high school recently, I kept thinking, my God, what a different journey she has had. In her case, she has always had her own room, most of that time in the leafy neighborhood where I used to deliver newspapers when I was a student at Milton Academy. By the time she got to high school, she had already traveled on 4 continents. She knew how to use and pronounce a concierge, and she had... and she has, so do you, evidently. And she had shaken hands in the White House with the President of the United States. There's a favorite story that in our family that I have worn out at home in Massachusetts about Catherine when she was 5 years old. And she was in kindergarten, and they were studying the changes in the season. And the homework assignment was to come home and describe the 4 seasons to Mom and Dad. And so she proceeded to describe, in accurate detail, by the way, her several visits to the Four Seasons Hotel in Washington, D.C. She said, first you drive up and the doorman takes your car. 5 years old. One generation. One generation. And the circumstances of my life, my family's life, were completely transformed. Now that story doesn't get told as often as we'd like in this country, but it gets told more often in this country than any other place on earth. That is an American story. And that story is made possible for me and a bunch of you in this room and all over this country because at another time, tough times or not, somebody looked ahead. Somebody thought about and worried about how to move a generation to come to a better place. And it seems to me that we, in our times, owe that same willingness and commitment to look ahead to the generation waiting to come. I'm glad to be with you all. Thank you all for having me.